Artist William Bock spent a year visiting local families and individuals along the north shore of the Shannon Estuary, from Kildysart to Labasheeda. The artist learned about local people's connections to the river, their histories, and spoke to them about their thoughts for the future. During his visits, William became interested in the silt that coats the estuary and produced a film and a suite of portraits of individuals and family groups as they emerged from the silt covered in the river mud of the Shannon Estuary.
As a complete newcomer to the area, not knowing it very well, my first impression was, in a way, how the kind of estuary landscape felt quite, not untouched, but less developed maybe than what I experienced on the other side, on the Limerick side. There's certain wildness on this side which really appealed to me. So I made a film called Rising, a culmination of about 6 months of spending time here, meeting people and exploring the landscape. And one of the main features in the film is the river silt. So the film features families who live along the length of this part of the estuary on the Clare side, and they are present in their homes or outside their homes or walking the land. They're dressed, but they're completely covered in river silt. The sort of grey figures, they almost look like sculptures at certain points. We see them moving through a landscape they're very familiar with, or posing as though they're posing for a family portrait. It's a non-narrative film, quite an abstract narrative or abstract form, but there is a progression in the piece. It starts close to the water and to the estuary shore, and it kind of progresses then further inland or to people's doorsteps. The idea of making a film was something, I felt like it was a form that the people I was speaking to could relate to. It gave us a kind of a framework to explore something quite intangible, this relation to this sort of sense of belonging, this relation to the river, which is different to maybe what it would have been like 50 years ago. The film was a framework to explore those ideas, and in a way to bring the community groups or individuals who I spoke to directly into the process of making the work. So rather than necessarily just interviewing them, they were almost part of a performance that happened on the shore of the river. It was about 6 months into the project that I proposed this idea of covering themselves completely in river mud. And I wasn't sure how it would go down. It was kind of a calculated gamble.
William came up, I think it was after January or something, and he made a mud person from himself in the field, and I thought like, wow, that's brilliant. It resonated really well with me because I did also some performances pieces in the Shannon and in the mud, so I thought like, wow, that's really, really good. I was really happy to be involved and get the opportunity to do a performance again, yeah.
He showed me a picture one night of himself when he had done the mud himself. I was blown away by it, to be honest with you. I just couldn't believe it. It just looked like a statue. You know, it was so real looking. So that's how we got involved in it then. I had been involved in a local festival here in Kildysart over the years, me and my family, and we were used to dressing up as different things, so we didn't mind doing it.
I'd sort of taken what I'd heard and I'd digested what I'd experienced myself, because it's a tidal landscape, the estuary, and when the tide's down, a whole new landscape's visible. It's the kind of the mud, which has its own tributaries and its own particular kind of biodiversity and animal life. So bringing the focus to that material, that quality, felt really important. It was also something that I saw again and again in images that one of the families showed me of people going to the island or having, there's one situation where they showed pictures of an island funeral where people would be dressed, you know, their best, Sunday best, to go out in a sort of funeral procession, but on the water, on boats. The coffin was on a boat and it would go out in formation, and then they would drag the boats onto land, but that happened at low tide. So they were dragging the boats through the mud, or these gandalos, which Gandolo boats, which are flat-bottomed, designed specifically to be able to like navigate that visceral, slippery landscape and essentially glide over it. But as you see in the pictures, everyone's kind of covered in mud. And there's a woman with a handbag and her raincoat, but there's smears of mud all over it. So something about like a life that was lived in that environment, but very closely to the materials and the texture of that space. So it felt very important to bring that in a very direct way. I mean, an extreme way, I suppose, in terms of what we produced. It's always an interesting process coming into a place and a community that you have no relationship with prior to it. You know, it's complicated. It's ethically questionable how you engage with people, where you position yourself in relation to other people who have very established relationships, connections. And I'm always, you know, working in a kind of a social way and collaborative way with a collaborative practice. I'm always being challenged, and I always have to be conscious of what those interactions involve. In terms of the project and working in this particular community, I found people were incredibly open and engaging. They really welcomed me in, which was refreshing.
I found William to be a gentleman from the day I met him, like, you know, so, and he loves the islands, like, so. I had him out there several times, and slowly but surely I got to find out what he's planning to do. Like, it developed as he was going out there as well. He didn't know exactly himself what he was going to do in the beginning, but he had ideas. I had given William an awful lot of old photographs of the islands going back 50, 70 years, like, you mean.
Because I was interested in people's relationship to the landscape and to the river specifically. The whole connection this community has along the shore between Ballinacally and Labasheeda was the relationship to, I suppose, the islands and kind of island culture, which some of the families here are very connected to them still, even though they're not inhabited anymore. It felt like the point of the strongest kind of connection to the water. Like, they were using the river a lot. They were moving every day by boat across to the islands from the shore. Once it becomes a film and it sort of becomes almost like a product in itself, I love that it's self-contained and it's something that can travel and move, but it's also part of a deeper process of holding a kind of opening up of social relations. You know, that across my work, I'm always interested in these kind of interactions, or, you know, art practice as a catalyst for something deeper and not necessarily just art for its own sake. Although I love art for its own sake, it's just that when you're working in a very socially engaged way, it's always going to be more than just one moment or just one artwork. It blurs with life and the everyday. I hope, whether I'm successful or not, I don't know, but I hope that these sort of provocations, you know, like making a film and opening up that process to people who maybe wouldn't normally be involved in that kind of thing, does something. It kind of activates something. And you don't know where that'll go.
Of course, the screening was here in Kildysart Community Hall, and I had a feeling that it might be busy, and that, thank God it was. 120 people, I think we had. It was absolutely amazing, and it was so good.
It really went down well with the people as well. They really, really enjoyed it. Like, I didn't know what they would think of the film, because it was a silent film, like, there wasn't any speaking the sort of in it, like, but it was just a real touch and moving kind of a film, like, do you know what I mean?
People are still thinking about it, people are still processing it, I think. It's interesting what it does to people, because they get it and they don't get it, and that sort of thing. So it is a sort of like a mystery a bit, and I think that's just absolutely wonderful, yeah.
There's also that kind of indefinable thing that happens when you present a film like that in a community hall where no one knows what to expect. And most people that came in the door was like, I have no idea what I'm about to see. Like, they really didn't know. But they left saying they're glad they came. So there's sort of space between the expectation and the experience. There's something goes on and you don't know what that is, but that's kind of the exciting chemistry. That's kind of why I do the work that I do, because there's a sort of a maverick unknowableness of of the result of that.